Hey, welcome back to Grace Talks, where we talk about really where faith intersects with really important topics in our world. And today we have Kristen Krauss, who is a therapist, right?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us like what you do. How did you get into this?
Okay. I'm a native Texan. Never thought I would end up being licensed in Arkansas. The full story is I saw the movie Taken in high school and I was like, this is horrible. People in sex trafficking is bad, wrong. What can I do? So, in my little brain, then I was like, you know what? I want to help people. And it just kind of evolved from there, to be honest.
Really?
hmm
So just a desire to help people. And so why did you end in therapy?
Yes. So there's a big umbrella within social work, right? Categories to help people. And I ended up switching my major in college from Christian studies. That ended up being my minor. I switched it to psychology. The professors were great. And I don't know, that's just kind of set things in motion. And then you know how it is you meet the right people and you just kind of get that internal nudge to keep going. And that's what I did.
Okay, wow.
Mm.
And the reason that that we wanted to talk about this today is because, at least in my experience, in the Christian circles, therapy and everything connected to it can be I don't know, a touchy subject. It can be um it can be attacked even from like different theological viewpoints. Have you ever run into that, or have you had
Yeah.
Christians struggle with that? What does that look like?
Absolutely. A lot of times you have somebody sit down on a chair and they're like, I'm really doing this, right? Or I can't tell so and so, or my church can't find out about this. So people come to me in all different stages. Some of them with some judgments on themselves for even walking in that they didn't know were there,
Right.
and some that they feel were placed on them, whether it was the church or other people in their life.
I know that. So I've run into at least two different versions of that in my own experience. One is the one that I've experienced the most and been a part of the most is so I when I first became the head pastor of Legacy Grace Church, which is the church that merged into Grace United, I suddenly had a job that was bigger than anything ever imagined. And I immediately was consumed with anxiety, right?
Mhm.
Started sleeping like 2 hours a night. I remember going into my GP's office, not knowing what it was,
Yeah.
and just crying in his office. And so, um, I never struggled with therapy, but I struggled with, they put me on some medicine, tell me
Mhm.
out, and that was always kind of shaming to me.
Mhm.
Do you run into that a lot?
Yes. Some people, they feel like medicine is a last resort. And so I'm more comfortable having them address it a different way, like a puzzle, right? Like there's different pieces of the puzzle to help us get what we need. For some people, medication may be the last piece of the puzzle. It may never be a piece of the puzzle. But for some reason, medication, for some people, they can struggle to feel like, okay, I need this.
So when people come into your office that deal with the guilt and shame
Mhm.
attachment to even talking to you, even having to say, I'm going to a therapist, I'm going to a psychiatrist, like how do you you probably deal with it on one level professionally, and
Mhm.
I don't know how free you are to share your own story. Like
Mhm.
how do you help people go through that shame and guilt
Yeah.
that's connected to it?
Once they get it out in the open, there is this, like, visceral you can feel the relief, the weight. And so once they just get it out there and they see that it's not that bad, that it's not that scary, I often remind people, "You're probably the main person judging yourself the most, so let's just get that out of the way. Let's assess how the guilt and the shame is not doing anybody any favors. It's not gonna make you any better of a person." So really, you're kind of just giving it space to breathe and the safety of a neutral third party to really explore it. It's pretty amazing what can happen after that.
But but for the people that have to go back to particularly a faith community,
Mhm.
that they, whether real or not, they have a perceived shame and guilt
Okay. Yeah.
connected to that.
Yeah.
Like, how because I think that a lot of people deal with that. I think a lot of people
Mhm.
are like, oh, I know I need it, but like the people that I'm around are their historical faith
Mhm.
says, oh, this is a shameful thing. Like, how would you help them process through that?
Yeah. It's a little different because at Grace, from the pulpit, we hear people encouraging them to go to counseling. And I think that it's almost been to this point with the church, not always with the intention to harm, but that avoidance of it, the topic, rather than acceptance of it. And so I think it's kinda hard to break through that just because somebody needs or wants therapy or is encouraged to go, that it's not their mental health in general isn't something that they necessarily chose. Um, there are things that can contribute to it, but some things are chronic and they're more about management rather than alleviation, if that makes sense.
Oh, 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 something you just said was, ooh, I hooked onto that.
Okay.
It's not something that they chose.
Right.
Go talk about that a little
Okay.
bit.
So I have yet to have a client sit down and be like, Kristen, I really want depression. I really want postpartum anxiety or OCD or trauma. Yeah, I'll take some trauma for like the rest of my life. Like nobody wants that. So when I say they don't choose that, we all inherit, certain sets of, I was going to say sets of skills. Liam Neeson stole my head from Taken. Uh, we all inherit gene susceptibility sometimes to certain things.
Mhm.
And sometimes mental health struggles are a necessary response to tragedy, right? We don't want them to stay forever. But why would anybody choose to be in emotional pain, you know?
I love that. I love that because it crosses over the barrier from what you do to what I do. The people that walk into my church, everybody is hurting in some way.
Mhm.
Everybody's struggling in some way. And from a church perspective, I'm like, why would I judge that person
Mhm.
for struggling?
Yeah.
Why would I judge that person for going? That doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
Which is what we love about Jesus.
Mhm.
Jesus says, all the people that the religious folks rejected, Jesus says, come to me.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the other side of that. I personally haven't experienced what I'm about to say, but I've seen it. And
Okay.
it's I don't know, it's the hyper spiritual version of this, which is if you just had enough faith,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, because and I've actually had people in my congregation,
Mhm.
um, I just say it the way I want to say it, attacked by other well-meaning people
Yeah. Yeah.
that say, if you just believed enough, you wouldn't have anxiety. If you just believed enough, you wouldn't have depression. If you had enough faith, and I think I don't obviously negate the faith part,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like I'm a pastor, right? Part of my job, but I also think that they're missing. I don't know. How do you address
Yeah,
that?
that can't be the only prescription, or if it is, then that shame piece comes in of, "Hey, my pastor said to pray about it, to go to this Bible study, but gosh darn it, I'm still having these intrusive thoughts, I'm still struggling." So, people need permission to seek out other things in addition to faith. It can walk alongside that mental health struggle.
So someone who has grown up in that, because I want to hang here just for a second. The people that are listening
Mhm,
that are one of two things. They're either the person that's like, if I just had enough faith,
mhm,
right? And they haven't sought counseling, they haven't sought a psychiatrist.
mhm,
Um, or again, going back to what we talked about before, they're in a community, they're in a family
mhm,
that put that on them. They got that from somewhere,
mhm.
put that on them. Like, how do they, like, practically, how do they
Yeah.
deal?
Well, I think it's good to encourage and remind people that how do you know that God hasn't already placed someone before you that wants to be there to help you carry that burden, whether it's a counselor, a support group, a psychiatrist. Like, we limit ourselves and we sometimes, just limit what God can do. But God, I believe, orchestrates certain people to be there. And we just have to be ready and willing to step out. It can be scary to seek help, absolutely, but I think we need that encouragement, that reminder that how do you know that's not what's supposed to happen?
And I really feel like I don't feel like this. And one of the reasons that we're talking is I think that at your normal everyday church, at your normal every spiritual group, everybody understands. Hey, you should be spiritually healthy, right? You should
Mhm.
be spiritually healthy, and everybody understands you should be physically healthy. You know, you should be physically healthy. But somehow, when it gets to mental health,
Mhm.
there's this blockage of it's the first 2 to me don't seem confusing to the faith
Mhm.
community. They're like, "Oh, yeah, we get that, right?"
Yep.
But when you get to mental health, there just seems to be just, yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know. Have you ever I mean, I know we've been talking about it, but do you have experience of that in your own history, or are you
Mhm.
just
Right, it can be invisible, like, you can't see inside my brain to see what's going on up there. Even though I may present with my actions like I'm okay, I could still be struggling, and I have, right? And sometimes I'll take a training and I'll be like, "Oh, wow, that's what's going on with me." I try not to diagnose the people around me because that would not be really fun, but I'm able to model to them, "You know what? I need help. I'm gonna go get help. Do you need help? Let's find somebody who can assist you."
I love that. And, one of the things that you talked about is an intentional thing here at Grace United is as pastors, like I am open about things I've struggled with. I've been open
Mhm.
about going to therapy. I've been open about being on some antidepressant drugs
Mhm.
for you. And because I do that specifically because if the congregation will follow our lead. So if I say, "Hey, I'm I struggle,"
Mhm.
then that allows everybody else to say, "Hey, I struggle." And I think that
Mhm.
transfers over into our relationships with the people around us, families and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Like that openness. I think you
Yeah.
talked about how did you say you opened the door? Well, you said something like that.
Hmm. When you're talking to your family or to the congregation?
Yeah, yeah, I guess yeah, I having the people move. I'm mostly interested in helping people move from a place where they're stuck
I got you.
to yeah.
Like, let's say you're concerned about somebody. If you're asking close-ended questions, you're probably not gonna get a lot of context and meat to how they're really doing. So in addition to modeling, the behaviors that are working for you, being able to not just do the standard, "Hey, how are you? I'm good. I'm fine." No, 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 like, "Tell me about the best part of your week. Is there anything that you're struggling with? How can I pray for you?" We're, like, really digging deeper a little bit to seeing what's there, if that makes sense?
Giving them permission.
Yeah.
So, we talked about this before we came on. One of the things that I'd love to hear is, and I know it's gonna be kind of, there's not a hard line, but how does someone know that they need to that they've moved from just normal everyday anxiety, which we all have,
Yeah.
normal everyday, some depressions that come along because you've had a long week, blah, blah,
Yeah.
but how does someone know that, "Hey, I should get professional help?"
Mhm.
This is something that has gotten to that level.
Yeah. The 3 words that come to mind are the intensity, the duration, and the frequency. So if it's something that you feel like, "Okay, I slept on it, it's still there. I'm in a meeting, it's still there. I'm having fun with my kids at home, and it's still there." Whether it's just a thought that you're stuck on, a memory that you're stuck on, if it's interrupting those times in your life that typically you don't have to work hard, you're just happy, that can definitely be a sign. Of course, if people are having suicidal thoughts, thoughts of self-harm towards himself or somebody else, you definitely never wanna ignore that. But anxiety is really insidious and it's interesting and it shows up in different ways and in our bodies. So that's another cue. These chest pains aren't going away, and the cardiologist says everything is fine. Well, you know what? That's probably your nervous system and anxiety trying to communicate, hey, we're not okay.
I love that because what you're doing is you're speaking to me. So my anxiety always when I told people I struggle with anxiety, people generally think, "Oh, Josh is sitting there, he's in his head and he's ruminating about bad thoughts,"
Mhm.
and and that was never my deal.
Yeah.
Like I got to the day fine. Where it first started presenting for me was, I would go through my day and I'd handle a lot of hard things, but I would handle them and I would go
Mhm.
to sleep and my nervous system would wake 2 hours later, would
Yep.
wake me up and I'd literally be shaking in my bed
Yeah.
because I had held on to that cortisol. I held on to it so long. And so my anxiety has always been presented as physical pain.
Mhm.
or physical exhaustion. It's never been, "Oh, I'm worried about tomorrow." And so I think that's a good clarification for
Mhm.
people. And so other than because I so I just brought up to the, "Hey, you're worrying in your brain," or,
Mhm.
"Hey, your body is telling the score." How else will people know? Because I didn't even know
Mhm.
I was struggling with, anxiety. Like, is there more than that? Is there more than the brain and the body? I mean, how does it present?
Right. Well, so with anxiety, it's typically speeding things up in the body, and depression is sometimes the opposite. It's slowing things down. I heard it described once of like you're walking through mud, like you're so tired, like there's so little motivation. Um, Another way to do this is just to get a journal that already has some questions to just ask yourself, even if it's just like thought dumping to see what patterns are there in your thinking. Like it may seem normal to you to obsess about if your child's breathing throughout the night, but that's not technically normal. And so sometimes we've got to just look under the hood, the vent of our brain, and just see, okay, what's continuing to show up? If we can't let go of it, if it won't go away, it's probably a sign that there's more we need to explore.
So journaling,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
It's
Um,
not what you think, probably, because I get that response a lot.
so okay, so great.
Okay,
What does that mean?
so you can call it thought dumping. Like what I never want to happen is somebody leaves my office and I can't be everywhere with them. Although some people say it's like the Jiminy Cricket and they're like, "Oh, you're telling me this." I'm like, "Great. Hope I helped in that moment." But we never want people to feel like they have to just sit with it on their own. Um, I think it was Anne Frank who said, "Paper has more patience than people." So having a way to get it out, whether it's through prayer, talking to God, talking to a friend, telling it to a piece of paper, but getting it out of your system helps communicate to your brain and your body, "Yes, I understand you're carrying this."
Okay, I do get that, because I use that in my own prayer life.
Oh,
And so,
great.
one of the things that I've taught, and this could help some people out, is that, a lot of people are like, "I get so distracted when I'm praying
Yeah.
because, I'm praying and then this comes in my mind." So, I've learned that I have a piece of paper, and if it comes I'll open my eyes, I'll write a little note to myself, and then I'll go back to it because the same thing,
Yeah.
I haven't lost that. I don't have to try to hold on to it. Oh, it's right there and I can get back to it.
Mhm.
And so, I know for me, what was really helpful for me in therapy, I went for probably a year,
Mhm.
during a really tough time. Um, and is they taught me techniques I could hold on to like in real everyday life, you
Mhm.
know? Um, and I think that that was for me the most helpful part.
Mhm.
So, like the people that come into your office, what are some of those like, I mean, there's a lot, but some of those
Yeah.
bedrock techniques that, so I'll give an example, like breathing, like
Yeah.
certain breathing patterns that I was taught that have helped. Like, what are some of those bedrock things that you say, okay, here's a physical way or some other way to deal with it as you go along?
Yeah. Yeah. I often tell my patients, "You're a human being, not a human doing," because so often when we're overwhelmed, we wanna just do, do, do. If I just distract myself, that's the answer. But like we were talking about earlier with the nervous system, we have to practice letting ourselves be. Even if there isn't this beautiful end product, like even if you need to take the afternoon off from work and you get paid a little bit less for the day, whatever it may be. So, nervous system reset, whether it's grounding, being in nature, writing in a journal, listening to music, all those different ways to just let your body have a moment to just catch up, release that cortisol. But I'm very much a present moment focused therapist. The present moment is not perfect, but it's truly all that we have. So, how can we get you living just in the here and the now, just for today?
Explain it a little more.
Okay. So, oftentimes, intentionally or unintentionally, we're living on rewind. We're living in the land of the past, which we don't have the keys to go back in time and change, right? So we see a lot of anger, depression whenever we're trying to rewind the tape and figure out what we could have done differently. And we just can't live there. It's not helping anybody. Or we try to live in the future, try to fast forward, we try to plan out everything in advance. And that's where anxiety tends to show up. So we have to acknowledge when we feel pulled or stuck in those areas. But I try to get people back to the present moment And once it's safe, we can process the past, we can talk about the fears of the future, but we're not gonna do too much heavy lifting in either of those destinations. We gotta stay right where we are.
Oh, that is crazy helpful.
Good,
You
good.
know, because I think that, I used to have a sign on the wall over here, and I actually have it tattooed over here,
Mhm,
is, Jesus says, he says, "Don't worry about tomorrow." And part of it is, A, we have no control over tomorrow,
mhm, yeah,
and B, for individuals like you and me that are Jesus followers, we believe that he holds the keys to that,
right.
which is also, I think, a big part of how does being a Jesus follower
Mhm,
intersect in I don't know what you do and what
mhm.
and how you lead people who are struggling.
Yeah, yeah. I have to remind myself, like, these people are entrusted to me, but these are God's people, right? So if I don't have the spirit in me, a lot of times for me, that's praying on my way to work. Like, God, give me the words to say to these people and just help them sense kindness within me. Um, but I have to humble myself that just because somebody's not making progress, that's not a reflection of me. These are people going through really difficult things, but I'm just a vessel to be used for that.
So, in your own life, how has Jesus? Because I know that you said that Jesus, you wanted to help people,
Hmm.
led to therapy. Um, yeah, so I hear the praying part, um, and I hear the theological part, but how else? I don't know. I don't know what I'm searching for here, because for me, Jesus is a bedrock of if I believe, which I do,
Hmm.
if I believe that number one, he is the son of the living God. Like he's not just an idea. He's a actual a person, and he does control the future, and
Hmm.
he does erase the shame and guilt of my past.
Hmm.
There is that part that the more I believe that and lean into that and adhere to that, the less my anxiety comes about. And I think people will struggle with that. So here's where I kind of want to end around in this area, which is this very practical.
Okay.
So you've got people who are listening to us and they say, okay, I hear what they're saying. I haven't gotten help. I've had shame and guilt, whatever the case may be. Like we're in the central Arkansas area. So
Mhm.
right now we're just going to be talking to that. Like if someone came to you and said, I'm really struggling, and they're not a
Mhm.
part of the organization that you're at, like, what would you tell them to do? Like, what practical direction would you
Yeah.
send them?
If you're ready, if you've got the motivation, don't sleep on it. Don't hesitate. Most people know how to work a Google search. Don't let cost be a barrier. There are plenty of clinicians who are still in training who offer extremely low costs, if not free. So don't let finances be a barrier. And again, just get out of your own way. You know, everything we hear as a therapist, we hear a lot. So don't let you convince yourself that your story is going to be too bad or that you're too far gone because I promise you you're not.
Right.
So just take that initiative. Don't sit on it. Go ahead and act.
So, I mean, I've got a couple that I can say, do you have any like places that you think are really great places here in the central Arkansas area?
Hmm. There, let's see, Little Rock Counseling and Wellness, Arkansas Counseling and Wellness, Napa Valley Counseling, Chenal Family Therapy. I can keep going if you want, but there's plenty. Psychology Today is a great resource. You type in what you're looking for based on insurance, if you want somebody of faith practice, male, female, and it really will give you great options there.
So Psychology Today.
Mhm.
Yeah, you named two of the three places that
Okay.
I would have named. Um, yeah, like you said, there is that person out there that can help you.
Mhm.
Like when I went to therapy, I knew that I was the pastor of a church. I was running an organization. I'm an Enneagram one.
Mhm.
That only means
Mm.
something to certain people. So I ended up, the guy who runs Napa Valley,
Mhm.
David, he's an Enneagram one. He graduated from seminary. He's run an organization. So he understood me,
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
he understood my brain.
Mhm.
And so that person is, and I do want to say this: finding a therapist, at least
Mhm.
this is the way that I say it, is a little bit like dating.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you go to one and you're like, I am just not connecting, go find it because
it
they,
happens.
they want to
Yeah,
help. They want to help you. You know, a
absolutely.
good therapist want to help you. So be like, listen, this isn't working for me. They're not gonna get their feelings hurt. I don't know, maybe they will, but
Mhm,
you know, and then you say, I'm gonna go find that person that'll help you. I
mhm,
even had someone in my life here recently. It was their third therapist that they found that really helped them.
mhm.
So so I love the fact that you went from following Jesus to this. So thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you.
coming on here at
Sure.
Grace United. And the cool thing is, if you go to Grace United, she's here. And so if you see her face and you need some help, say, "Hey, what can I do?" And she'll love on you.
I will hook you up.
All right. See you guys next time. Bye.